So if you want a surefire recipe for being unhappy, absolutely miserable as an ENFP, it's this: to look inward, to be introspective, to reflect. Okay, that might sound crazy because we hear so much about personal development is about, looking inward and asking ourselves the big question, how could that be bad for us? Well, I'm going to explain that and get into it, but just go with me on it, because the most miserable that I have ever seen ENFPs is when we are spending way too much time looking inside. Now, this video and the ones I'm going to be making in the future are based on a new approach that I am taking to YouTube, which is based on creating the videos that are either inspired by things I'm already sharing with my clients or things that I just want to share with my community based on your comments or emails I get, not based on the algorithm. And, I gotta be honest, I've really stopped enjoying creating here on YouTube because it's all about algorithms and the titles and the thumbnails, and the amount of views a video get is based on things that are not really what an ENFP wants to spend his time doing. And I realized that even the quality of my videos was going down because my head got caught up in the algorithm, thinking about what I should create to get views and to make the channel, successful, rather than when I started, which was a message or like, hey, this crazy thing happened to me, and then I got this insight for ENFPs and I'm going to share that and maybe help some people out. It went the totally opposite direction. I just stopped enjoying creating. And and I got to the point where I'm like, well, either I just close the channel down. I mean, I wouldn't close it and delete the videos, although you should pretend I will and go watch all of my past videos, assuming they'll get deleted next week, because that might actually give me a nice little boost again. But that, either I'm just gonna stop making videos, which I did have that thought for a bit. And then I was like, well, if I'm just not gonna care about the results anyhow, why don't I just film the things that I really want to share for my community? Like the people, my existing clients and ENFP Unleashed members, and that, just share for them and not look at the views, not care about any of that. And so that's what I'm going to do. And so let's go back to how to be really unhappy. And I'll start with, there are a couple things that inspired this video, but one of them is an email from someone who's an ENFP and going through some really hard times. And one of the things I noticed is he described himself as a sophist. I really should have learned how to pronounce it before, but in terms of a philosophy. And so I looked up this philosophy. It's not something that I'd heard of before. And the definition I found, and I'm sure someone in the comments will tell me how to spell it and pronounce it properly, was a belief that nothing that happens outside of us can be known to be real. So basically, all we know is what's inside our heads. Everything else, it could be created, it could be lies, it could be part of, we're all in a big game of The Sims, like who knows? And I was like, wow, that philosophy is a recipe to have the least happy life ever. One of my authors that I've been really consuming recently, and going back a couple of years on and off, I often come back and reread some of his stuff, is Bertrand Russell, who was a British philosopher, mathematician, and had some pretty interesting insights into life. And in one section of one of his books, he talks about a recipe for unhappiness is to spend too much time being introverted and introspective. And he uses this example of, he says, imagine you have two sausage makers. So a machine, you have this contraption that makes sausages. And one day, one of those sausage machines decides, I want to learn about me and how I work and what makes me so wonderful. So it stops making sausages and spends all its time trying to examine how it works. But of course, because it's not making sausages, it doesn't have anything happening to understand how it works. So it just spends time looking at this machine that isn't doing anything and gets terribly depressed. In other words, we need input. Our entire existence is based on our relationship to the external world. And it's perhaps one of the reasons that people who are wired to be extroverted tend to I'm pretty sure, be happier, like in surveys and things like that. Extroverted people, I believe you want to fact check me on this, etc. But I believe generally extroversion leads to more happiness in general. It doesn't mean introverts have to be unhappy, but the idea of sitting around all day just thinking about yourself and like who you are and what your purpose is going to cause unhappiness in many people. Because we are wired, we are meant to be doing things. Like, I'm on a rotating chair, by the way, if I'm like spinning around, that's why. We're meant to be doing things. We're meant to be interacting because we weren't designed evolutionarily, our brains, our emotions, to sit around and introspect, because if that was it, we would have all died. We're designed to be part of a tribe, to be doing things, to be achieving goals. It's why you have more positive neurotransmitters when you are pursuing a goal than when you are not, because that's how we're wired. It makes us feel good to go out on the hunt. So ENFPs, when we get into that, now for us specifically, there's even more that goes into this, where we can get caught in this loop with extroverted intuition, where we start thinking about what is important in life, what should I be doing, and kind of trying to create our goals and our life plan. And we all go through those modes. Personally, I have realized that I am really unhappy when I get into that for more than a day or two. And I used to spend sort of weeks in like life reflection mode and what should I do? And now I try to minimize that as much as possible. Like, I give myself a day or two. Right now, I just got back in Prague a couple days ago. Actually, I can show you the view from my new flat. It's not as good as the view from the old flat, but the rent is half as much. And since I'm not here for most of the year and tend to be traveling, I decided not to spend a crazy amount on my rent. So anyhow, back here in Prague, and I sort of completed a lot of things in Spain, and there was like the tight deadline of my flight. I took the weekend off, and then I was like, okay, what is my plan for the next 2.5 months? I'm kind of doing things in quarters right now. And I am not going to let myself be in this mode for more than another day. Like tomorrow, everything's going to be ironed out. And by Wednesday, I'm going to be, filming, writing. I mean, even today I did 2 hours of coaching and meeting with my assistant, and then I'm filming this. It's like doing. And, I consider myself someone who can be very intellectual in my brain. I love to think, I love to learn. But it is not what makes me happy and satisfied. The days when I am doing, when I'm writing, when I'm filming, when I'm coaching, I am so much happier. And that is because, well, for a lot of reasons. It doesn't really matter for that video, or for this video, I should say. And I get it that there's totally times when we don't know what we should be doing. So we're like, yeah, I get it, Dan. I would love to be doing, but I don't know what to do yet. And that can be tricky, and that's something, I work with my clients on, of like, when you're trying to start a business, for example, like how soon do you do it? Because you do have to think about what business you will do, but you don't want to get stuck in that for like months or years on end. So thinking back to this person who emailed me, this philosophy is like, no, that's like the recipe to have the least happy life ever, because the philosophy is nothing is real outside my head, which is a very opposite philosophy to like, I don't know what would be a philosophy for this, but I think of like cognitive behavioral therapy as like change your behavior, etc. Right? And so my advice, and I'm going to send him a note personally as well, and maybe he'll check out this video, is stop. Like, don't think about everything. Like, focus on doing. It's the doing where we actually get the things we need. As much as we are intellectual creatures, we are also biological creatures. And the amount of positive feeling we get from human connection, from touch, from conversation. One of the things that I've noticed, and I talk about this in the ENFP Calling, which, by the way, I wrote a book, and it's pretty good, and do I have a copy here? I do have a copy. If you haven't read it yet, I would highly recommend it. I spent a good portion of my life and gained a lot of gray hair finishing it. There's a portion in this book where I talk about some of the research on social networks and how, yes, it's really important to have some close friends, but it's also actually really important for our happiness and our function to have acquaintances and sort of those casual connections. And one of the things in Spain that I know really helped me be really on fire and productive and feeling great when I was there over the winter was that there was this awesome cafe and co-working space that I would go to most days. And it's sort of place where everyone's like, hey, Dan, and like you have small conversations and you chat. And it's like that sort of connection changes our mind. Like we get something from, I shouldn't say changes our mind. It changes our biochemistry in the moment. You get these positive feelings from that. I don't know if you've ever had the feeling where you've connected with a stranger on the street, like held the door for someone or smiled at someone or helped a granny cross the street, and you feel good for like hours after. That's real. That's a physical change that happens in your biochemistry because of that interaction. So if you lock yourself in your house thinking, I'm going to reflect and I'm going to find out what I should be doing, and you don't get any of that, and then you start feeling really bad. And here's another thing. I have plenty of videos on this topic. Is when you feel bad physically, one of the things that happens is your brain comes up with reasons to justify why you feel bad, and you tend to become more cynical and pessimistic. So I have an old video called like why I never make decisions when I'm hungover. And this is what I talk about with it is like if I'm in a bad mood, if I'm sick, if I'm hungover, I just shut my mind off. I watch shows, play games, hang out with friends. I do not allow myself to be introspective because I know that in that mindset, I'm going to go into dark places. And that's what happened. So you can imagine this activity where we think we're being responsible. It's like, hey, I need to figure out my life. Okay, what should I do? And, blah, blah, blah. So we kind of isolate ourselves and we say, I'm going to stay at home and I'm going to introspect and I'm going to figure things out. Well, now we start to feel bad because we're not getting that positive human interaction. We're not connecting with other people and doing all those things that make us feel really good. So now we feel bad. And now we're reflecting on our lives while we feel bad. Guess what's going to happen? We're going to go to dark places. We're going to feel shitty about ourselves. We're going to be feeling pessimistic about the fate of the world. What are the chances that we end that interaction with ourselves being really inspired? Probably pretty darn low, right? So what I've found for myself is the best thing I can do for my own mental health and generally my sense of being effective. I'm trying not to use the word productivity anymore because it's kind of a weird connotation, like we're all just like labor machines for, I don't know, something, right? But I find I'm more effective, I get more done, I'm happier, and generally just sleep better and feel more fulfilled when I focus on doing things for most of the day. And maybe take, a little bit of time to reflect on stuff every so often. This is something I might talk about. I have like some strategies for this I might talk about in some future videos as well. But the basics of it is, if you've been in your head and you're feeling kind of awful and you're kind of stuck about like what you should be doing, then one of the things I highly recommend is to focus on like doing and actually getting out there. And so let's say you're like, I want to start a business and you don't know what it is. Okay, start going to meetups, go to events, join communities, meet with a coach, like do things where you're interacting with people and ideally leaving your house as well. So maybe you're like, I don't know what my business should be. Cool. Go to a local coffee shop and spend 2 hours every day reading business autobiographies or reading the ENFP Calling. It's an excellent book for entrepreneurs. You're doing. So maybe you're not doing like writing yet or building the website, but at least you're leaving your house and doing something in that. So that's what I have to share today. That's it. If you're new to the channel, which I doubt you are at this point, I haven't published a video in like 3 months. I'm probably the only people seeing this are existing subscribers. Consider subscribing. And let me know in the comments if this connects with you, if this is something that you've dealt with. If you're an ENFP, you've probably experienced this before, I am sure. And I look forward to seeing you in some future videos soon. I'm feeling really good about this new approach, and I'm not going to promise a certain publishing schedule or anything like that, but I think it's going to be a lot more frequent because even though I haven't been publishing here, I've actually been, I'm doing a ton behind the scenes with clients and with the monthly group coaching session for ENFP Unleashed members and all this sort of stuff. And so this new approach I'm feeling really excited about because I can get back to why I did this in the first place, which was more about sharing something valuable for my fellow ENFPs and members of the community, rather than thinking about what some introverted dorks in I don't know, wherever the heck the Google, YouTube head offices are, whatever they want me to publish for some weird algorithm god that they worship in some creepy demon sex ceremony they do to all praise the algorithm will be God. Yeah, so anyhow, hopefully someone sees this. Ciao.